So good morning learners and welcome to our today's lesson. In our today's science lesson, we are going to discuss about soil, and in this we are going to deal with soil fertility. Now, as you know, we discussed about soil elsewhere in class 6, and in class 6 we dealt with the agents of soil erosion. Agents of soil erosion. We first defined what soil erosion is, and we say that soil erosion is the carrying away of the topmost fertile soil by agents. Here we discuss about two agents of soil erosion. Number one, we discuss about wind as an agent of soil erosion, and also we discuss about water. We also discuss those factors that contribute to soil erosion, like the human activities. Those are some of the things that we discussed in class 6. Now in this class 7, we are going to discuss about soil fertility, and we see how it affects agriculture. So we are going to deal with soil fertility, and in this we are going to see that soil fertility is the ability of the soil to be able to support plants to be able to produce eyes for a long time. So that ability of the soil to be able to produce enough crops for a long time, to be able to support the crops, is what we call soil fertility. So we are going to see how soil fertility is affected when we have several things that occur. So we are going to say that soil is the topmost Earth's cover. So we are going to define what soil is. We are going to say soil is the topmost Earth's cover. So what covers the earth on top is the soil. Again, we are going to say that for this soil to be able to support plants for a long time, it must be fertile. Fertile soils support plant growth and development. Now we are going to see that the soil that is not fertile, we say that soil is infertile. Infertile, or we can say the soil is loose. Like in the case of sand soil. Sand soil is not able to support crops because of its nature, it's loose. Once water pours on it, it sits down, and then the plants are left without anything to use. So we are going to see that there is a way we can be able to improve. We can improve, farmers can improve soil fertility. At the same time, we can also say that they can restore. How can farmers restore soil fertility? If it's lost, what things that can we do to ensure that we get that fertility back, because we need to continue farming, we need to continue growing crops. So that is what we are going to discuss today, learners, and we are going to deal with fertilizers. So this is our main subtopic today. When we are dealing with soil fertility, we are dealing with soil that is lacking fertility, and so we are dealing with infertile soil. And so there are reasons or ways of improving this particular soil to be able to support plants for a long time and give enough yields. So today we are going to discuss about fertilizers. And now I want to tell you that the plants require nutrients. Plants require nutrients in two ways. Number one, there are those plants that require nutrients in large amounts. So we call them macronutrients. So these macronutrients are nutrients that are required by plants in large quantities. Nutrients that are required by plants in large quantities are known as macronutrients. And we can give examples of macronutrients. We have number one, nitrogen, or nitrogenous fertilizers. We'll come to that. So nitrogen is one of nutrients that are required by plants in large quantities. We have potassium, we have sulfur, etc. So when a plant requires a lot of nutrients, we say that those are what we call macronutrients. They have another name, we call them macronutrients or major nutrients. So in an exam, you can be asked, which of the following is not a major nutrient? And so you can be able to tell that. Plants also require nutrients in small quantities, and we call those micronutrients. And micronutrients are required by plants, in small quantities. So you realize that we have two types of nutrients. We have macronutrients and micronutrients, whereby macronutrients are required by plants in large quantities, and micronutrients or minor, can also call them minor nutrients, are required by plants in small quantities. And so we want to give examples of micronutrients, small nutrients. We have what we call molybdenum. We have also boron. Just to name a few, these are examples of micronutrients that plants require them in small quantities. And so with that, we want to move on and try to be able to define or categorize fertilizers. So fertilizers are categorized into two. There are two types of fertilizers. So we have what we call natural fertilizers. We have natural fertilizers. Natural fertilizers, you can also call them manures. Another name for this one is organic fertilizers. They are also known as organic fertilizers. At the same time, we have what we call the artificial fertilizers. And artificial fertilizers or manures are also referred to as inorganic fertilizers. Inorganic fertilizers. As you realize that we shall use these organic in natural fertilizers, and you see how we can be able to identify them. So I want us today to just discuss about the natural fertilizers only. So we are going to deal with one natural fertilizer. So I want to give you the four natural fertilizers. Natural fertilizer, I want to define what they are. I can call them manures. So manures are divided into four categories, and these ones, they are grouped according to two ways. Number one, we have the method of preparation. Then we have the materials used to make them. So natural fertilizers are grouped into four, depending on the method of preparation and materials used to make them. So we are going to see four categories of natural fertilizers. So number one, natural fertilizer is what we call green manures. Green manure. So you can be able to see this. Green, from the word green, this is the material. So we are going to know what they are. Number two, category number two, we have what we call farmyard manure. Farmyard manures. And farmyard manures are also known as FYM. You can also call them animal manure. So if you do, in the exam you don't find farmyard manure, you can see animal manure. Then we have category number 3. Category number 3 is compost manure. The compost manure. And lastly, that is number 3. And lastly, we have what we call the organic mulches. The organic mulches. So these are the four categories of natural fertilizers. And natural fertilizers are majorly made at our homes, where we live in the farm. So these are majorly done there. We are going to discuss the first one for today, that is green manure. So we'll see what green manure is. So from the word green, you will realize that these are material. It's a type of manure, a natural manure, which is prepared using green plants, and so prepared from green plants, and we say majorly leguminous plants. So this one will be prepared from green plants, and especially from green plants that are leguminous. The reason why I'm talking about leguminous plants is because the leguminous plants, as we saw, maybe in class 4 and 5, you realize that they have the capacity to be able to convert the nitrogen in the atmosphere into nitrates, and therefore the plants can benefit from those nutrients that they get from the atmosphere. So that's why we're using leguminous plants. Leguminous plants are just what we call legumes. These are just legumes. So examples of such plants that can be used to make green manure include beans, peas. We have many. Napier. Napier grass is not a leguminous plant, but it's a type of a crop that can be used to make green manure. We also have maize stalks. Maize stalks. You realize I've said majorly leguminous plants, but there are also other plants that you can be able to use. So we say they're prepared from green plants, majorly leguminous plants, and we have given examples. So you want to see how they are prepared. Very, very important to know how they are prepared. And the way we prepare this is very simple. Number one, we talk about planting the leguminous crop. Number one is to plant the leguminous crop. Let's identify a certain leguminous crop, like we can get the beans. So you planted your beans on a farm. After planting, you let them grow up to, allow them to grow, and before they flower, you plow them back into the soil. Plow them back into the soil. That is one way, Nana. You let the beans grow in the farm, and then you leave them to grow up to where they can start flowering. Before they flower, meaning that before they produce their flowers, is now when you come back and plow them back into the soil. That is like about 3 to 4 weeks. They have grown to maturity, almost flowering. You plow them back in the soil. You can use an oxen-driven plow, or you can also use the tractor to be able to do that one. If you don't want to plow them back into the soil directly, another way, you cut them and chop into pieces. Chop into pieces and plow them back into the soil. you will realize that here our main point is these plants are supposed to get into the soil just before flowering. And why are we talking about before flowering, Lana? Because if they start flowering, the number of leaves are going to reduce. They will shed off some leaves to be able to allow flowers to come out. What we need in these plants, the leguminous plants, is not the stems. We require the leaves. That's why we are allowing them not to flower. Because if they start flowering, some of the leaves will get off and then will remain with sticks. So what we want in these plants majorly is leaves. So that's why we are not allowing them to flower, because we are not interested in this crop. We are not using this crop to produce any produce. Our main aim is to put some fertility in the soil so that you can bring now the main crop. After doing that now, you allow 3 to 4 weeks for decomposition, or to allow the material to rot before planting the main crop. So this is what happens, Lana. We have planted our main crop, that is beans. After planting, we let them to grow, and just before flowering, we can chop them and plow them back into the soil, or we can plow them back into the soil directly as they grow on the field. After doing that, we allow them 3 to 4 weeks so that they can rot and decompose and fix nutrients into the soil, and then now we bring the main crop. Let's assume that our main crop now was maize, so we come and plant our maize. So the maize that we have planted will utilize the manure that has been fixed by this green manure. That is exactly what happens to be able to produce green manure. So our main aim is not the leguminous crop. That is what we want. We want the leguminous crop to be able to fix nutrients in the soil, and then now we come and plant the main crop so that we can utilize the nutrients that are fixed by those leguminous plants. So now we are done with the manure is prepared. We are going to the last part of that, and that will be the qualities of plants that are used as green manure. So we don't pick any other plant. There are qualities that we look from that particular plant so that you can use as green manure. So qualities of plants used as green manure. What are some of the qualities that we need in this particular plant? We have chosen beans. What do we want from these beans? How should they behave? Number one, they should have a fast growth. This crop we have picked to plant and use as a green manure must grow very fast. Remember, Lana, this is not the main crop. The bean is not the main crop. So there's a crop we are coming to plant that will expect us to give us yields. So if this one is going to take a long time in the field, it means that rains are still going on. And so by the time we are coming to plant our main crop, rains will have gone, and then we will not be able to produce any yields using the main crop. So they should grow very fast to give room for the main crop, so that they can allow planting of the main crop. If it's going to take most of the time, it means that rains will be very short for that particular main crop, and at the same time, we know that nitrogen is found at the onset of rains, because that time is when we have lightning. So the lightning helps these leguminous plants to fix nitrogen into what we call the root nodules. Root nodules are things that look like this. You have seen in a bean seed, it has a taproot, and then on those small root hairs, you find things looking like this. This is what we call the root nodules. The root nodules. So these root nodules help fixing nitrogen from the air into them, and then they convert that into nitrate using what we call the NFB. The NFB is nitrogen fixing bacteria. that helps in doing this. So once nitrogen is there, and it's always found when we have lightning, and lightning is found at the start of rains. It's when we have a lot of lightning. So that lightning is very important to help these plants, the one with the green manure we have planted, to fix nitrates into the soil, so that when that plant comes, it can be able to utilize that. So exhibit what we call a fast growth. Grow very fast, be plowed back into the soil, and then be allowed to decompose, and then allow the main crop to grow. Number 2, it should be leafy. Should be leafy. Should be leafy. What do you mean, Lana? That we don't want the stems, we don't want the sticks in that plant. We only need the leaves. Because remember what we said in class 4. The components of soil. Talk about humus. That is organic matter. The organic matter cannot be found if you don't have leaves. If all we have is just sticks, we cannot make the organic matter. So one needs to have as many leaves as possible, because these are the ones that are going to fix the nutrients into the soil and be utilized by the main crop. Number three, should be able to decay very fast. Should have a fast decomposition. Of course, I have mentioned this. These plants, once you plow them back into the soil, they should decompose very fast, so that they allow time for the main crop now to be able to grow. Then lastly, they should contain high amounts of nitrogen. High amounts of nitrogen. Therefore, I'm saying that's supposed to be leguminous. Here, majorly require the leguminous crops. So those 4 points are the qualities of plants that are used as green manure. Fast growth, fast decomposition, should be leafy, and lastly, they should be having high content, nitrogen content, so that they can be able to fix the nutrients into the soil. So now we have seen where we have come from. We have seen what soil fertility is, so the ability of the soil to be able to support plants and be able to produce yields for a long time. We came to just see how plants require nutrients. We said plants require nutrients as there are those plants that require nutrients in high quantities. We call them macronutrients. They are required by plants in major, in large quantities. And we gave examples of sulfur, potassium, nitrogen, etc. Then we said there are those other plants that require a little amount of nutrients, and we will say that those nutrients are micronutrients or minor nutrients. Then we came, of course, to discuss about fertilizers, and we said fertilizers are 2 types. We started with the artificial fertilizer, and then we have the natural fertilizers. Then we began with the natural fertilizers, and natural fertilizers, we are saying they are divided into 4. Number 1, they are divided depending on the materials used to make, and then the method of preparation. How are we preparing them? So those are the 2 ways in which we categorize this natural fertilizer. So we have said there are 4. We have the green manure, we have the farmyard manure, the compost manure, and lastly we have the organic manure. We have just discussed about the green manure, where we said it's a type of fertilizer manure that is prepared by just planting leguminous plants on the main, what we call a seed bed. Seed bed is where you go and plant your crops. So after planting them, just before they flower, you stop and then cut them into small pieces and plow them back into the soil, or you can plow them directly into the soil just before flowering. Then from there we have given examples of such plants that can be used to be able to make green manure. We said mostly leguminous plants, examples beans, peas, and the like. You can also use other plants like napier grass, maize stalks, sorghum, etc. Then we came to the qualities of plants that are required to make green manure. We've said number 1, they should be leafy. Number 2, they should have fast growth to allow time for the main crop to come and grow, fast decomposition, and lastly, they should be leguminous plants. So until next time, Lana, tomorrow we'll be discussing about farmyard manure. So let's meet tomorrow and have an interesting lesson as we had today. May God bless you. Thank you.